Hello girls! This video will guide you through the process of completing your graphic organizer. First, we have to begin with reviewing the question asked in the prompt and we're going to rewrite it in our graphic organizer in order to stay focused. So this is the space. This space, you can also use this space to add synonyms of the main topic so that you don't repeat it over and over throughout your essay. So that's what I have so far. And I wrote in there, what are the roles, if any, of public libraries in the future? So once we have our question, we need to review our notes to come up with our thesis and with the topics that we will be discussing. So remember that our thesis needs to be persuasive. So review your notes, look for all the roles that you annotated on the side of your resource packet. And what I noticed, and this is what I'm going to begin doing, you don't have to do exactly what I do, but you can if you want to. Remember, this is your first synthesis essay, and it is okay to copy what I have so that you can learn. So, and then in other ones, of course, you're going to have to be doing it on your own, but on the first one, it's fine. So what I noticed by reviewing all of the sources is that most of my evidence is guiding me, or it's kind of like telling me that libraries have always been a lot more than just a space for storing books. It has been, or they have been, a place or places to meet other people and to learn from other people. You know how we saw libraries as tutoring centers, as community centers, and all kinds of things that we saw were related to having people teaching you something. So with that said, I identify my three roles. And remember, or I identify three topics that I want to discuss in here. And first of all, I want to create my thesis around the notion that these places are a lot more than a storage place for books, that these places are places to meet other people and to learn from other people. So I identified three main roles. And again, you can use my same roles, or you can come up with your own, or you can change them later on if you want to. But the three roles that I recognized are that they have been community hubs, okay, community hubs that are teaching us about cultural and social activities. Also, learning spaces that are teaching us kind of like extracurricular activities or extracurricular no, not extracurricular. It's more like tutoring centers, right? But I'm going to call them learning spaces. And this is where we are learning about reading, writing, technology, and so forth. And then the third role is a civic support center. And this is the place, how we learned a lot about being a place for the community to engage in citizenry, as in, many different types of political engagement, voting, information about voting, information about your community, how to make better decisions also for when you're voting for not just for politicians in general, but also for things that pertain to schools. It is very common also to see that people meet at these libraries to vote on, I don't know, a new grant or of funds for opening a new gym at a particular school and so on. Now that I kind of like have an idea of what I want to write as my thesis, I want to promote that it's a meeting place for people mainly, and then through people we learn different things, right? And I already kind of like listed my three topics. I want to, and then I'll take you back to my thesis. I know that I haven't really introduced it yet, but I want to bring attention to this document that I have uploaded into your Google Classroom, and it's how to come up with good hooks and attention grabbers. So it gives you lots of information, specific information about the better hooks that I've seen so far, and how to use them correctly, and also I'm also giving you some examples of them. I am kind of like telling you right here that for a synthesis essay, you really have to shoot for a definition, okay? A definition of the topic, of the main topic. And the reason why is because your college professors and whoever checks your AP exam is going to be looking for the definition of the topic that guides you to come up with that thesis. Like, why did you come up with that thesis? Well, because I believe that this is the definition of libraries, for instance, right? So I am telling you that the best hook for a synthesis essay is a definition created by you. And then I'm giving you several examples on how to come up with one. And it's a simple exercise, I think, that you can use, and it gives you kind of like extra points in a synthesis essay, because they're going to be looking for something that for a definition. What is your definition of, you know, whatever the topic is? And yes, you can paraphrase definitions from the dictionary, or what you remember that could be a definition in the dictionary, because you won't have access to a dictionary. But again, I'm giving you lots of ideas right here to come up with your own definition, and then I'll show you mine. It's simple, and it can give you extra points. There are many other things in here that you can also use if you say, well, no, I prefer to begin with a statistic, because we do have very good statistics in the sources. That's fine. You can introduce you can hook people with your statistic, and then move on to a simple definition, and then your thesis. That will enlarge your introduction, which is perfectly fine, and make your paper stronger. This is what I have so far. This is my hook with my persuasive thesis with a frame. Okay, so my hook is a definition. And what I wrote in here is, since their inception, libraries have been much more than buildings where information is stored. Throughout history, these community centers have granted us access to the most important resource we all have, other people. So again, I am using kind of like a definition. So a lot of people would think that libraries are just buildings where information is stored, and I'm saying that they've been much more than just that. Okay. Now in my thesis, this leads to my thesis. Okay. So my thesis begins like this. Understandably, some might say that libraries are institutions of the past due to the popularity of ebooks. Nevertheless, these spaces continue to support raising good citizens by assuming valuable roles such as, number 1, community hubs, number 2, learning spaces, number 3, civic support centers. So as you can see, I actually numbered my topics in here. It is always a good idea to do that. Just make sure that you are using the punctuation correctly. And this kind of like clarifies any misconception that your audience might be having, or it keeps them away from inferring your topics and your thesis. So you have everything super clear, and it gives you, again, extra points. Now, from my thesis, remember, these are my topics. I am numbering my topics. From this, I am going to turn them into my claims that will become eventually topic sentences. Okay, so I'm forming kind of like the claim. Okay, so I mean, what do I mean by community hubs? For instance, right here in my claim number 1. Well, I mean that community hubs are those, or when libraries work as community hubs, they give us access to cultural and social activities. What do I mean by learning spaces? I mean learning spaces that allow us to acquire information from both books and other people. What do I mean by civic support centers? Civic support centers that continue to build citizenry amongst us. So that's kind of like your topics in a more, better explained in a way. If you want to see how this is looking in my actual essay, this is more or less how it's looking. And I highlighted my thesis just to guide me. I am, of course, not going to be able to do this in an essay, But when I type, I do that normally, and I do it so that I can stay focused and just make sure that I am addressing my thesis. So next, I'm gonna go look for my CDs, my concrete detail for each one of my claims or my reasons or my topics, right? Very important, you don't have to write down every single little detail when you are pre-writing. You can be as detailed as possible or as simple as possible, as long as you know where you're getting the info and that you're not throwing in there lies, right? It has to, you can paraphrase, you can quote directly, or you can summarize. You can do one of those three in your concrete detail. Again, paraphrase, quote directly, or summarize. And this is more or less what I have. Okay, so I am using that quote that we saw in source C about the bookmobiles visiting minority communities in St. Paul to teach digital literacy in different languages. Now I can expand a little more, and I will when I type or when I write my essay, because remember, you have to have more CD than CM in these types of essays. Always more CD than CM. Now, I am also giving you space to write down 3 CDs and 3 CMs within each one of your sources, but you don't have to. As long as you have 2, I'm good with that. Okay, and I'm putting a third space in there just so that you can have a little bit more, just in case you might want to use that third CD as your hook, or you might want to use it somewhere else. So I'm okay with it. Just use the space as you need it. Remember, concrete details are evidence. Okay, what you are looking at on your resources, it's not a comment, it's just exactly what you're looking in there. Now, your commentary. I'm going to be commenting on each one of my CDs right here. And my comments can be, you should remember this. I can comment on why is this happening? Why is this important? Or I can also comment on making a connection with my personal space. Okay, I could do that, remember, or a connection with today's society. You know, if you're talking about something that happened in the past in your CD, and you want to have a connection to today's era, then you can do so in your commentary. Okay, so there are many different things that you can do on your commentary. This is the one that I did for my first CD. These activities are not unique to St. Paul. Most libraries around my Hispanic community teach English for free. So there, I commented on this particular CD. I'm doing the same thing over here. On my CD number 2, I wrote down that another illustration of this is that Illinois Public Library with that calendar that demonstrates that they teach all kinds of things in the afternoon, right? And that is coming from source B. And then I'm commenting in here that it is important to have a good relationship with your community. And I can comment a little more, you know, I can give the reasons why. Why is that important? Well, it's important to have, you know, to avoid issues like, you know, the ugly issues that we've seen, you know, that people don't understand each other and don't understand each other's culture. And then you start stereotyping and generalizing, and then ugly things happen. Okay, so this is what I have so far. Okay, I have, and oh, don't forget, you have to color code those paragraphs always when you are working, practicing, and not actually completing a test. So you have to color code this for me. So don't forget also that you need your indentation. The indentation is what's going to tell us that there is a new paragraph in here. Always indent when you're writing for your AP exams, or, you know, just like the way you did when you wrote for your EOCs. So you have my hook right here. You have my thesis. And then each paragraph is going to begin addressing each one of the roles that I have selected. And of course, you want to make sure that you are addressing the fact, because that's what I am claiming, that these spaces, these spaces continue to support raising good citizens, and it's more about meeting the people than about having access to a book or an ebook, right? Which you can also have access to ebooks in libraries. We know that. So anyway, that's what you have to be making sure that you go to that over and over throughout your essay, because that is your main claim. So that's what I have right here. So I changed a few things to make sure that I have more red than green, always more red than green. And I added a little more in my quote. And then over here, I basically, what I did is I used an actual direct quote in here on my first one. And then on my second one, I paraphrased. So you want to stick to that. You want to, in your first one, either use a quote or paraphrase, and then do the opposite on the second one. That way you're not repeating and it doesn't look like you're doing the same thing over and over. So that this is my first paragraph. Libraries have been and will continue to be community hubs. Again, I'm addressing my first topic, community hubs, that give us access to cultural and social activities. For example, there's my introduction to my example, guys. Pay attention, okay? For example, some libraries have bookmobiles that visit minority communities. In St. Paul, to name one library bookmobile visits minority communities, and then I open my quote, to teach digital literacy classes in Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. And then I have to say where I got it from. Source C. If you stick to this, you'll be fine. That's all you need to do. Just cite the source in parentheses. That's it. And then my comment. These activities are not unique to St. Paul. Most libraries around my community, which is predominantly Hispanic, teach English for free. There, that's my comment. Then I'm going to introduce my second CD. Another illustration of this is an Illinois public library. Its calendar demonstrates that this hub is used as a center to teach its citizens crafts and Pilates. It promotes storytelling, and it even schedules visits to a local senior citizen center. And then I got this from source B. And then my little comment about this. Having a space to connect with other people or to learn from them is important for healthy relationships with our communities. And I'm closing my paragraph with this comment. Whether these community hubs are well-known historical buildings in large cities or one-room town hubs in rural communities, promoting citizenry through teaching arts and crafts and jazz or language has always been part of the function of most libraries. Okay, I'm throwing in here a little literary or rhetorical device called, well, I'm not going to tell you. Well, I'll tell you. It's polysyndeton, and you're going to be learning about it in the upcoming week. Okay, girls, now you need to finish up the whole graphic organizer now. I helped you with one paragraph. It demonstrated how it needs to be done. Now you need to do the same thing for body paragraph number 2 and body paragraph number 3. Then when you're done with that, then you need to move on to your conclusion. Your conclusion, read the instructions right here. It is important that you throw in some implications. Implications are just the effects or consequences of the issue. You can say something like, who is affected with, if there's no public libraries in the future, right? You can throw in some sentences that address this. What would happen if we don't have libraries in the future, right? And then what are the limitations of the argument of the sources or the shortcomings of your own argument? What's missing? Why? Whose point of view should you have also in here, right? So maybe it would have been a good idea to have the point of view of the people who uses libraries the most, right? Maybe senior citizens, young adults, children, parents who take children. Okay, so we did not have their point of view in here. It would be nice to have, maybe some quotes from them to make our argument even stronger. And then just restate your persuasive essay. and you should be done and you should be good. Don't forget to color code your paragraphs, and I will be checking this next time I see you.